Nothing that's petty. High off the best, they sit they call Betty. Wanna play the game, but they brain ain't ready.
All right, we're ready here.
Hit the wrong run, someone innocent son. Players full swing, I bury another. Recognize the pain in my city.
WHGE 95.3 FM coming up. The Open Eye. All right.
Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure of mental masturbation or ego diddling. We do so because the chains of oppression around people's minds are deep and difficult to remove.
Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm your host and third eye optometrist, Patrice Gibbs. Ready to get them started. Let's get them started right here. Every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and reverse the brainwashing. And that's what we do here, reverse the brainwashing. Let me tell you something. One of the things that I say on the opening is we do not engage in ego diddling. Good morning, Sherry. I see you, sister. I am not the core source of the many truths that I share with you. I'm merely a vessel. Some will understand this, some won't. One love to all of you. All right. All right. You know, it's something that we're still dealing in this late day and age with the crap that we're dealing with. You know, let me get my disclaimer out the way before I go on right quick here. Let me get that out the way. All right.
The views and opinions expressed on the Open Eye are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eye's hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual.
WHGE 95.3 FM. Saw a few people post this, and it's so real. It's pretty sad that there's an entire profession that we have to make body cameras, have to make wear body cameras, because they lie so much. And we know I'm talking about the police. All right? And see, the thing is this. Racism is so American that when we protest racism, the average American assumes we are protesting America. You know, when I say the average American, you know I did not hyphenate that, did I? No, I didn't. You know? Want to thank Sister Sherry. How you doing there, sister? For this. Expand your mind outside the box, because there's a whole lot more than what's been ingrained in your mind. The information that you see on the walls of the monuments in Egypt were put there by our ancestors. It tells stories about the ancestors that created math, science, language, art, music, electricity, agriculture, and so on. It tells of the story of the Virgin Isis, whose immaculate conception created Horus, the sun god. It tells the history of Imhotep, the father of medicine, and the creator of the first medical instruments that are still used today. Imhotep created those thousands of years ago. Surgical instruments, still used today. Basically, everything that's ever been created, that's ever been invented, and we're taught who invented them, originally came from Africans. The problem is that our story has been buried for so long that most of us have a hard time believing anything outside of what was learned in the textbooks. And that's true. As a matter of fact, some of our learned scholars are apprehensive about talking about our history, especially ancient times, because they're afraid of being accused of describing utopia or a fantasy that never existed. You know, there's a guy that's been popping up on the internet, and my boy General Seti, my man's General Seti, Sarasutin Seti, has been exposing him. This guy named Billy Carson, and man, this guy is on there, and he sounds real deep, and he's talking about the Anunnaki and the Sumerians and Atlantis and the Emerald Tablets, and it's all BS. It's a black dude, and he's misleading people with just tons of misinformation. And he should be shut down. Said he should dog it. Anybody should expose him. Moving right along. This is from Dr. Runoko Rashidi. Dr. Rashidi said, family, I think about Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. What wise, wonderful, and brilliant men they were. And they were taken from us when they were only in their 30s. They fit right alongside Frantz Fanon, Patrice Lumumba, Thomas Sankara, Amilcar Cabral, Stephen Biko, and Bob Marley, and Walter Rodney. They are truly the sons of Nzinga Zumbi, Nanny, Bonnie, Harriet Tubman, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, Marcus Garvey, Kwame Nkrumah, Kwame Ture. What great men and women we have given to the world. Let us mark their passing by rededicating ourselves to the dreams they shared and lived and died for. The upliftment of our people and making a better world. Ashe. WHGE 95.3 FM. The Open Eye. What's up, Ron? I see you, brother. Yeah, My City. Original composition, production by Nosa Roma. Yes, indeed. All right. All right, what we got here? Cut the crap. All right. Got some ticking going on here. Y'all wait a minute. All right. Tell you something. You know, I had a couple of people ask me over the past couple of weeks, hey man, how come you ain't say nothing about, you know, all the mess with P. Diddy and all? You know, especially because I really don't give a damn about P. Diddy. I really don't. You know, I feel sorry for the people that have gotten involved with him and been abused by him and robbed by P. Diddy. And yeah, I saw the apology after the video came out of him abusing his ex-girlfriend, Cassie, whatever her name was. I don't follow celebrities a whole lot, too much, And of course he came out, like I said, with that apology. And, that apology was nothing. It was absolutely nothing. It was insincere. He didn't apologize to the young lady that he abused. I'm gonna cut it off right here. May he roast in hell, and may the devil sodomize him with a pitchfork. That's all I got to say about that fool. Of course, what's really been hot is Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman from Texas, and her retort to Marjorie Taylor Greene, the MAGA witch, and I talked about it last week, who came out with her attack on Jasmine Crockett, talking about her false eyelashes are too long and she can't see, and this, that, and the other, and she was messing with the wrong one because Jasmine Crockett dogged her, and she did it in such a smooth way. And what she did was, of course, we all know by now, she asked a question, point of order. Okay? And she asked, would it be acceptable to talk about somebody's bleach, blonde, bad built, butch body? Which she has taken to calling the 6 B's. It's coming up on t-shirts. It's coming up in music. I even seen a dude do a country song to it. Yeah, people have been having a lot of fun, with the exception of the bleach blonde, bad built, butch body Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, one of the things that I noticed during that exchange was some other congresswoman telling Jasmine Crockett to calm down. Oh, calm down. You need to calm down. Oh, you're hollering. Oh, you need, like she didn't have a right to clap back at that nutty wench. And what this person was doing was basically tagging her as the angry black woman. It's like we don't have a right to get angry when someone attacks us. We don't have the right to fight fire with fire. Too many people been listening at Michelle Obama with that, when they go low, we go high. The hell with that. Yeah, the hell with that. Yeah, that's word. When they go low, we cut them off. That's what you do. Cut their legs off so they stay low and realize that they came messing with the wrong person. And Jasmine Crockett is far too intelligent, far too sharp to just come out and say something silly without being smart about it. And she was really smart about it. Because she asked a question. She asked a hypothetical question. Would it be acceptable to talk about somebody's bleach, blonde, bad built, butch body? That was a question, a point of order. She was still within the parliamentary rules. Just ask a question. Yeah. And of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's been biting the dust on this. So much so that what she tried to do was to show that she didn't have wait a minute. That she didn't have the 6 B's, a bleach blonde, bad built butch body. I keep that over here because my memory is short, and I don't always remember it. But yeah, she went and made a video of herself exercising. I don't know what she was trying to do. Was she trying to build up or build down her bleach blonde, bad built butch body? It makes me wish that No Saroma was here. Because, boy, would he make a song about that. Yes, he sure would. And he would kill it. I'm totally confident of that. Come on. Come on. Give me 3. Excuse me, y'all. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye.
I ain't the villain, and right across the street they running a trap building. It's not only drugs, the building was gun building. Flying Coliseum forces, not even looking. Like the wrong one, think he make a good booking. All right next to him, got the real cooking.
I'm Patrice Gibbs. This is The Open Eye. All right. And let me tell you something. I'm sure some of you heard this, especially if you listen to The Open Eye. They didn't steal slaves. They stole scientists, doctors, architects, astronomers, teachers, entrepreneurs, fathers, mothers, sons, daughters, etc., and enslaved them. Yeah. Saw this MAGA head fool. He was on, and he's real angry about it too. He's on one of these TikTok videos talking about black people didn't build America. Black people didn't. We built this. White people built this. Black people didn't build America. Man, he was cussing and fussing. Well, if they built anything, look at Africa. There's nothing there. It's amazing how deeply and how deeply ignorant and how much they celebrate their ignorance. Where did urban planning come from? Africa. Where were the first cities built? Africa. Where were the first governments formed? Africa. You come here to America, if you took all the stuff out of America that black people had built and invented, you might as well go ahead and do the right thing and turn it back over to the indigenous people that were already here when the European came, because the European wouldn't have a damn thing. Our inventions are so extensive. We built everything from the cotton scraper to the zipper. We invented the ironing board, the bed frame, even the counter in your corner store was invented by black people. Monday is Memorial Day. Do we know the history of how Memorial Day got started? If you're tuned into The Open Eye, you're about to find out. On May 1st, 1865, thousands of newly freed black people gathered in Charleston, South Carolina, for what may have been the nation's first Memorial Day celebration, and not may have been, it was. Attendees held parades and put flowers on the graves of Union soldiers who helped liberate black people from slavery. The event took place 3 weeks after the Civil War surrender of Confederate general and traitor, I like to throw that in there so y'all don't forget, outlaw Dixieland, Confederate traitor General Robert E. Lee. 2 weeks after the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. It was a remarkable moment in U.S. history. At the nexus of war and peace, destruction and reconstruction, servitude and emancipation. But the day would not be remembered as the first Memorial Day. In fact, white Southerners made sure that for more than a century, that day wasn't remembered at all. It was kind of an erasure from public memory, said David Blight, a history professor at Yale University. In February 1865, Confederate soldiers withdrew from Charleston after the Union had bombarded it with offshore cannon fire for more than a year and began to cut off supply lines. The city surrendered to the Union Army, leaving a massive population of freed, formerly enslaved people. Also left in the wake of the Confederate evacuation were the graves of more than 250 Union soldiers buried without coffins behind the judges' stand of the Washington Race Course, a Charleston horse track that had been converted into an outdoor prison for captured Northerners. The conditions, of course, were brutal, and most of those who had died succumbed to exposure or disease. In April, about 2 dozen of Charleston's freed men volunteered to disinter the bodies and rebury them in rows of marked graves, surrounded by a wooden, freshly whitewashed fence, according to the newspaper accounts from the time. Then on May 1st, about 10,000 people, mostly formerly enslaved people, turned out for a memorial service that the freed people had organized, along with the abolitionist and journalist James Redpath and some white missionaries and teachers from the North. Redpath described the day in the New York Tribune as such a procession of friends and mourners as South Carolina or the United States never saw before. The day's event began around 9 a.m. with a parade led by about 2,800 black school children who had just been enrolled in new schools bearing armfuls of flour. They marched around the horse track and entered the cemetery gate under an arch with black painted letters that read, "Martyrs of the Race Course." The school children proceeded through the cemetery and distributed the flowers on the grave sites. Other attendees entered the cemetery with even more flowers as the school children sang songs, including the Star-Spangled Banner and John Brown's Body. When all had left, Redpath wrote, "The holy mounds, the tops, the sides, and the spaces between them were one mass of flowers, not a speck of earth could be seen. And as the breeze wafted the sweet perfume from them, outside and beyond, to the sympathetic multitude, there were few eyes among those who knew the meaning of the ceremony that were not dim with tears of joy." The dedication ended with prayers and Bible verses from local black ministers, followed by speeches from Union officers and Northern missionaries, a picnic on the race course, and drills by Union infantrymen, including some African American regiments. The observance didn't end until sundown. And then Blight said the event was forgotten. Not right away, but within a few decades, any recollection persisted merely as rumor in verbal anecdotes. The reason, he said, is that by the middle and end of Reconstruction, the black folks of Charleston were not creating the public memory of that city. The portrayal of the Civil War and its aftermath was controlled in the South by groups such as the United Daughters of the Confederacy and Ladies Memorial Association, as well as Confederate veterans. The Daughters of the Confederacy were the guardians of that narrative. And much of that was skewed toward the Confederate point of view. And of course, the Daughters of the Confederacy, Southern white women, many of whom owned slaves, they didn't even call it the Civil War. They called it the War of Northern Aggression. And many of those racist idiots, traitors to America, still call it the War of Northern Aggression. Put it in textbooks and crap. The War of Northern Aggression. It was the South that started that ish, that fired the first shots. Blight chronicled the 1865 Charleston ritual in his 2001 book, Race and Reunion, The Civil War and American Memory. Based on evidence that Fordham helped him uncover, Blight had been researching the book in 1999 in an archive of the Houghton Library at Harvard University when he found a collection of papers written by Union veterans that contained a description of the May 1st, 1865 events in Charleston. If the description was accurate, Blight said he knew that that event in Charleston deserves its own full commemoration just because of the poignancy of it, the sheer scale of it. But first, he had to corroborate it. One of the first places he contacted was the Avery Research Center for African American History and the Culture of the College of Charleston. I called up the curator there and said, I just found this in a collection of veterans materials. Have you ever heard of this story? The guy said, no, that never happened. Ain't that something? The guy was Fordham, who at the time was a graduate student of the college and research assistant at Avery. Despite his doubts, Fordham knew the center had microfilm of the Charleston Courier, a daily newspaper from that time. So he checked it. And about 2 hours later, he called back and said, oh my God, here it is. Blight said it was a Courier article from May 2nd, 1865, describing the extraordinary parade on the old Planters Racecourse. Blight went on to find more proof, including an illustration of the fenced cemetery that was published in Harper's Weekly in 1867. Pretty soon, I had all these sources that no one had ever bumped into. So one thing kept leading to another. But even people in Charleston said, no, never heard of it. That shows the power of the erasure of public memory over time. And that's what they do. On May 1st, 1865, a parade to honor the Union War did took place in Charleston. It reads a state historical marker erected in Hampton Park in 2017. The event marked the earliest celebration of what became known as Memorial Day. That started by black people. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. smooth, funky instrumental. Smooth, funky instrumental. Yeah. Composed and performed by No Cerrone. All right. Clarence Thomas, Uncle Ruckus, Uncle Sambo. Now, I will not call him Uncle Tom because you know the history. Uncle Tom was not the Sambo. We shouldn't be surprised. We shouldn't be surprised. Clarence Thomas set back civil rights 70 years. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is raising eyebrows and getting plenty of eye rolls for his comments on a landmark court decision that helped invigorate the civil rights movement. We've been rolling our eyes at Clarence Thomas. When he got up and said that crap in his Supreme Court hearing, this is a high-tech lynching. Yeah. Goddamn clown. On May 23rd, yesterday, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 in the case of Alexander versus South Carolina Conference of the NAACP and reversed a lower court decision suggesting that race was a factor in recent congressional redistricting in South Carolina. Of course it was. The court's 6 conservative judges voting together in the majority, unfortunately. The NAACP told Newsweek that the decision was a severe blow and gut punch to democracy and the American people. Idiot Justice Thomas took time to co-sign Justice Samuel Alito's opinion for the court, writing a concurring opinion claiming that the courts should have nothing to do with how political districts are designed. Drawing political districts is a task for politicians, not federal judges, Thomas wrote. Now, you know, Thomas, Uncle Ruckus, rarely, if ever, writes any opinion. For decades that he's been on the Supreme Court, he's one of the quietest people on the Supreme Court. And what's that saying? Better to remain quiet than and let people think you a fool than to open your mouth and confirm that you are a fool. But then he made comments that single-handedly set the civil rights movement. Thomas went that set back the civil rights movement. Thomas went on to blame the problem with those kind of cases on the Supreme Court's historic 1954 Brown versus Board of Education decision, which banned racial segregation in schools. Thomas claimed that in the case of the Brown decision, the court went too far, calling the ruling an example of the court's extravagant uses of judicial power, at odds with the history and tradition of the equity power and the framers' design. And what is he setting up here? What is he setting up here? Because what he's doing is he and the rest of these Supreme Court justices, racist bastards, what they're setting up is to reverse discrimination laws. The original Brown decision argued that racial segregation goes against the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which guarantees equal protection under the law. But Thomas has long argued that there's nothing wrong with the idea of separate but equal. And this is a black man, and he's long argued that. Damn, Uncle Ruckus, what happened to your black ass? Racial isolation itself is not a harm. Only state-enforced segregation is. After all, if separation itself is a harm, and if integration therefore is the only way that blacks can receive a proper education, then there must be something inferior about blacks. How do I hold myself from calling him the N-word with a hard ER? There must be something inferior about blacks. This is what another black man said. Yeah. Under this theory, segregation injures blacks because blacks, when left on their own, cannot achieve. This black man actually said that. Despite history showing everything to the contrary, to my way of thinking, that conclusion is a result of jurisprudence based on a theory of black inferiority. And he said that in 2004. You talk about black white supremacists. This man is, you know what? Yeah, he's mentally ill. That's his problem. He's mentally ill. And like I said, in spite of what the history shows us, because what history shows us is that when left to their own devices, black people excel. How many towns, how many societies, how many communities were built within 10 years after the Civil War? 10 short years after the Civil War, black people, formerly enslaved people, formed thriving communities that were self-sufficient, economically, socially, politically, spiritually self-sufficient. Not only were they self-sufficient, but they thrived. And they thrived to an extent that it upset the Mayonnaise Brigade. It upset white people so much that they went and bombed and destroyed, burned down these towns, flooded them out. And this happened all over the country. When left to our own devices, we excel on a level that if we had been left alone, we would be centuries beyond what white communities are doing. No doubt. That's not bias. I'm not being prejudiced. I'm speaking from the facts that show us what we are capable of. And that's what we need to remember. What we are capable of. How powerful we are. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. Did you know, after and during the Civil War, millions of free black people were funneled into concentration camps in America and killed through forced starvation and other means? I've talked about that before. In Natchez, Mississippi alone, official estimate that over 20,000 free black people were killed in concentration camp called the Devil's Punch Bowl. To this day, that grove grows beautiful peaches that no one will eat because they know what fertilized them. See, it's the foolishness we're dealing with. That foolishness, I said last week. Beware of stupid people in large numbers. That's how you get a Marjorie Taylor Greene in office. I can't imagine what her community looks like. Because it's full of stupid people that would vote an idiot, an uneducated, barely literate moron. You know that since this last Congress, that they have passed less laws than any Congress in the history of America. Of all the bills that have come through, they've only passed 1%. 1%. You know what? Maybe if we underpaid politicians and overpaid teachers, there would be smarter people and less stupid ass people in our government. God. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Oh. Uh-oh. And that's that Rona by no Seroma. The coronavirus. I remember when you recorded that. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Let me get something here going. Let me see here. Yeah. Okay. 7 scary things black folks should never forget about Trump's presidency. As the New York trial for former President Donald Trump winds down, it's clear that he will attempt to reclaim the White House regardless of the outcome. If Trump is found guilty on 34 felony counts of falsifying business documents, he will most likely receive probation and fines instead of the actual prison time as a first-time defender in a non-violent case. Yeah, the hell with that. Lock his ass up. In addition, even if he's convicted, he can still run for president. His previous term was riddled with incompetence and bigotry, which significantly impacted the lives of black folks. Here are 7 scary things that we should never forget about Trump. 1, he flubbed COVID-19 in a major way which disproportionately affected black people. According to a report by the House Select Committee, the Trump administration engaged in deliberate efforts to erode the U.S. response to coronavirus for political reasons. People dying and stuff. 2, Trump propped up white supremacy with MAGA, known as Make America Great Again. When the hell was it ever great? And who was it great for? MAGA or Make America Great Again became not just Trump's 2016 campaign slogan, but a political movement that targeted black people and people of color. Down do that BIPOC thing, you know. The former president believed that the country was once great, but the immigration and diversity has ruined this status. It quickly became a racist rallying cry, with MAGA believers often taking hateful, sexist, homophobic stances. This was underscored with the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville that went down during Trump's presidency. Y'all remember that? The event was organized specifically by white supremacists and neo-Nazis. And he said there were fine people on both sides, and it was done to amplify white nationalism. Hate crimes increased under his presidency. Yeah. According to data released by the FBI, back in 2020, hate crime reports in America soared in 2019 to the highest level since 2008. The annual report on national hate crime statistics showed that murders classified as hate crimes more than doubled from 2018 to 2019. 51 people were killed in instances fueled by hate. Sadly, the data also showed that black people overwhelmingly comprise the largest category of reported hate crime offenses, with a total of 48.4% of those crimes motivated by anti-black bias. Brother Lawrence, thank you. Trump's immigration policies led to tougher laws, as well as the deaths of 21 migrants. During Trump's term, he made it more difficult for foreign-born workers, mostly comprised of black and brown folks, to enter the U.S. on visas or as refugees. You know what? I'm not gonna just blame Trump on that one. Okay? Because it wasn't just Republicans that would deny visas or allow black people especially to immigrate as refugees. That crosses party lines. Make no doubt about that. Those people that fled places like Haiti and what have you, and give a damn if it was a Democrat or a Republican in office. It might get worse under Republicans, but Democrats participate in that crap too. The fifth thing the Orange disaster did. The former White House occupant called on the National Guard to attack Black Lives Matter protesters. Trump placed black people directly in harm's way back in 2020 when he sent thousands of National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. to mobilize against those protesting the murder of George Floyd. In addition, the Trump administration deployed dozens of unidentified federal law officers, mostly from the Department of Homeland Security, to Portland, Oregon. The result for both were complete chaos and injuries to non-violent protesters. According to former Defense Secretary Mark T. Esper, Trump had asked about shooting protesters during the civil unrest of 2020. Number 6. He was instrumental in inciting violence on January 6th. Make no mistake about that. He incited a mob of his followers to attack the U.S. Capitol as a final attempt to remain in power at the tumultuous meeting with his strongest supporters. Instead of gracefully losing in 2020, did Joe Biden Trump align himself with outside advisors who encourage him to keep pressing his election fraud lies? He subsequently encouraged his followers to flock to Washington for a big protest, saying, "Be there. It will be wild." And about 800 people participated in the insurrection and the attack. And one of the worst things, and this is why I advocate voting, Trump lined the Supreme Court with justices that would overturn affirmative action in Roe v. Wade. Lined the Supreme Court. As if it wasn't enough idiots on there like Uncle Ruckus, Clarence Sambo Thomas. Yeah. That's right. So if y'all ain't got hip to that, you need to. Because now the Supreme Court, like I said, their thing is to turn back the clock. Make America great again for white people. Bring back affirmative action for white people. Yeah, because affirmative action started for white people. What do you think slavery was? That allowed Massa and Missy to sit on the porch and drink their magnolias or whatever they were drinking, their mint juleps, and watch black people slave and toil for their profit. You don't think that was affirmative action? Moving right along, we know what we're going to be dealing with if Trump gets back in office. But what are we going to be dealing with if Biden gets back in office? You know what? This from Jeffrey Robinson, attorney and historian, great teacher. And he asked, what is Biden's Safer American plan? Jeff Robinson said, I just saw President Biden's Safer America plan and I had what the Yankee catcher Yogi Berra might call deja vu all over again. I flashed back to 1994 when then Senator Biden was standing right behind Bill Clinton at the signing of the 94 crime bill, and the slogan for that was, "Make America Safer." Sound familiar? It should. President Bill Clinton bragged that he was going to cut 270,000 federal employee jobs to pay for his crime bill, and Senator Biden and the First Lady were out there stomping for this bill. They were warning us about the predators that had to be removed from the rest of us. 100,000 new police officers and $9.7 billion for prisons. That was a boost to mass incarceration. Well, President Biden says now we should all agree the answer is not to defund the police, it's to fund the police. His Safer America plan calls for $12.8 billion to get officers out of cars and walking foot patrols. And he uses magic words like safety and equal justice and constitutional policing to justify this expenditure. So what's the difference this time? If there is one. We know where these police are going to go. In the black and brown communities across America. We know that the Obama administration, with Joe Biden as vice president, supported training in Minnesota before George Floyd was murdered. On many things, including implicit bias, mindfulness, and escalation. What he should be concerned about is the military training that's going on in police departments across America and institutions called Cop City, where police officers are being trained for urban combat. How about urban oppression? They're training for urban combat. Who lives in urban areas? We know that's a dog whistle for black people. Don't be silly. When I see this new plan, I see words like impose tough penalties on all forms of fentanyl, so these traffickers of deadly drugs can get the penalties they deserve. That sound familiar? That takes me back to the war on drugs, folks. This is simply meet the new boss, same as the old damn boss. Jeffrey Robinson. With some commentary thrown in by me. Our choices are dismal. Don't get it mixed. Biden, a white supremacist, mentored by Strom Thurmond. Delaware is a southern state. He is directly responsible for mass incarceration and proudly so. His vice president, Kamala Harris, declared war on black people in California and was gleeful about it. Jim Crow Joe seemed to be on a mission to alienate black people throughout his last campaign. Choosing Kamala Harris, a notorious Negro-peeing bedwench, was the final slap in the face. Black people who support this awful team admonish those of us who are critical of this sorry-ass ticket to forget the past. Can't forget the past. Those that forget the past are doomed to repeat it. Those that encourage you or block the past from being taught have every intention of bringing the past back. It's no different from white people telling black people to get over it. Now, on the other hand, the orange disaster is the worst racist to sit in the White House since Woodrow Wilson. Or Ronald Reagan, may he roast to hell, may the devil sodomize him with a pitchfork. The orange disaster is a narcissistic, misogynist, barely literate, mentally ill, evil bastard. The choices are dismal. This is the reality we are dealing with. And it's the Democrats that allowed this madness, not those of us who are not afraid to face and state the truth. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM. that's doing it. Yeah, by the group Implosion, featuring Smooth and Rick, aka No Saroma. You know, the music I played today was by or featuring No Saroma. Tomorrow would be my brother's 57th birthday. Yeah. Hell of a brother, definitely gonna miss him. Hell of a musician. Yeah. Close this segment with this before I close out. No Saroma said, hip-hop narrates the activity and conditions of our culture. It doesn't create them. Don't be larger than life before your album hits the streets. Keeping it real is not about bling. Keeping it real is not about fancy cars. Keeping it real is not about making it rain. Keeping it real is not about fast women. Keeping it real is not about weaving some fantasy to obtain an unwarranted, bogus level of street credibility. Keeping it real is about telling it like it is. Keeping it real is about professionalism. Keeping it real is about integrity. No Saroma was a consummate professional, and his music spoke volumes to that integrity. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Show business is a business, and long before he took to the stage or goes to the studio, No Saroma took the needed steps to ensure success. Rest in power, my brother. I miss you dearly. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye.
They say that we ain't doing nothing for weed. We get ready to the shore. I hear them talking. Yeah. I be hearing them, man. I'm not answering for them. They ain't doing it though. Hear y'all talking, but y'all ain't doing it. Say smoke 5 green, but y'all ain't doing it. Y'all think y'all hot dog, but y'all ain't doing it. You think you spit a hot verse, but y'all ain't doing it.
Yaga. And as we always say, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. I'm Patrice Gibbs. This has been The Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. Thanks for joining me. Yeah. And as I always tell you, global African supremacy. Because the world's a much better place when the black man rules. Peace and love. Remember, no Saroma. Say that you live at a show, but y'all don't